I know from personal experience it can be tough to transition from a student nurse to a professional nurse. I remember when I started my first job in the emergency room, and I sat there twiddling my thumbs because I still had not successfully gotten an IV in and I was about to hit the ground running. Little did I know that there was such a thing as nurse residencies. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about HCA Healthcare's nurse residency program. This program supports newly graduating nursing students at the early stages of their careers. HCA Healthcare's year-long nurse residency program helps first-year nurses transition from the classroom to working in the field with confidence. Plus, nursing residents get access to a range of opportunities to learn from specialists in various areas, such as ER, critical care ICU, and surgical services. And there's a variety of other great benefits. Learn more today at careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. Again, that's careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. HCA Healthcare is an equal opportunity employer.
Welcome to the Nurse Leader Network podcast with your host, Chris Racinos. Wherever you're going on your nurse leader journey, we're here to help you get there.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Nurse Leader Network podcast. Today, we are in for a super big treat. We have Catie Harris of Nursepreneur with us today. Welcome, Catie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited that we finally got to get this episode started. I know you and I met up back in a couple of months ago, right before COVID hit, and we had been planning on getting this done, and you know, the pandemic kind of got in the way a little bit. So
yeah, it got in the way of a lot of things for all of us.
Yes, so I'm glad that we have you, and I think it's really timely. This is actually, we're in the midst of Nursing Week, and there was a survey that came out about a week or two ago that I saw by Feed Trail and Holly Blue, and they stated that about 60-ish% of nurses were either looking for another job or looking to leave the profession or had already left. And so that's kind of a staggering number, and I think it's a great time to talk about your topic and your business. So Catie, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can totally believe those numbers because I feel them in my business as nurses come in and they're interested in other opportunities and what else can I do. And, you know, I really felt that way many, many years ago. So I've been in nursing for, oh my gosh, something over 20 years. I can't remember anymore. But so for 20 years, and I always had this want and desire to just do more and what's next and you know what else can I pull into the equation, and the hospital system doesn't seem to really like you to do that. And so I've always kind of been, I'm going to say, on the fringe type of employee, like, because I'm always pushing the envelope and want to do something extra and more and above and beyond, and they're just always trying to pigeonhole me into a position. And it wasn't quite working out for me that way. And I guess the real kind of, for me, the nail in the coffin was working for neurosurgery for 15 years as a nurse practitioner. And, you know, I grew up with these residents and I worked as much as they did practically. And then one year they graduated, right? And here I was back working with the intern and reporting to the intern. And I remember the intern saying to me, "Oh, we don't do things like that around here." And I was like, I've been here for 15 years. You're going to tell me that's not how we do things. And then confronting and attending and just having a blow up with him, right? And that was just kind of, you know, he didn't like being disrespected, even though it was in private. So I ended up getting sent to anger management classes. So here I am with a PhD, an MBA, 3 master's degree, and I'm in anger management classes. I'm like, this is not going the way I want it to go at all.
Wow.
So it was really just kind of that turning point for me. Like, I'm like, I know I have to do something else. There's nothing that I can do in the hospital system that's going to make anything better for me because I just don't fit in this area. And you know, you get that sense, and you know, I don't want to kind of just categorize all corporations or whatever as bad and evil, because that's not it at all. But there's that kind of corporate sense that you just do what you're told and that's it. And I didn't like that. So I knew I needed something more and something different. And that's when I started exploring opportunities for how can I do something that really uses my expertise and helps me to get to where I want.
Okay, so tell me more. I mean, I'm loving hearing your story. You talked about, okay, so you had this blowout, you're in anger management. What was your next, what'd you do next? What was the next step?
Well, I'd love to say that I quit that day and then went off and made tons of money in my own business. And that's kind of the dream, right? Everybody has that dream that, as soon as they quit, that's what's going to happen. So what actually did happen was I realized my time was up at that hospital system, and one of my residents that had just graduated as an attending was like, well, I'm going down to this other hospital system. Why don't you come with me? So I did, and that change was nice. And what I realized that I really liked was the learning aspect. I loved the learning curve and learning new things and just growing and my knowledge growing and my expertise growing. But then again, after 3 years, I'd gotten to a point where I just knew how to do everything really well, and there was just nowhere else for me to go at that point. And at that point, I actually got called by Walmart, and they needed a senior manager for talent acquisition to recruit nurse practitioners into clinics, in their clinics that they had down south. So that was another opportunity where I was like, yeah, this is great. And I got to learn a whole new skill set. And I did that for several years. And it was just another one of those things where you get to that ceiling and it's kind of like, no, this is what you have to do. And every time the learning got cut off for me, I got really frustrated and I guess angry. I guess I am an angry nurse. I don't know.
And so out of anger, though, I like to say that it breeds all kinds of really cool and neat things. So, okay, so you left Walmart, and how was Nursepreneurs born?
So Nursepreneurs was born basically because one of the things they tasked me with at Walmart was to recruit nurse practitioners. And I was like, well, how do I get a hold of nurse practitioners? And I kind of went down this hole of, how do I market to people? How do I get everybody into one space? So I had started a blog on nurse practitioner issues, and then helping new grads to transition. So I had created that kind of business model. And it was, it went really well for a time. And then I found the concierge nurse model. So then I started a concierge nurse business model. And along the way, I've always helped other people to start their businesses. I do have an MBA, and I have had small businesses on the side. God, ever since I was like 6, I used to sell lemonade to construction workers. It's one of those things that I've always had that spirit to do something and make money. Um, so yeah, the business of Nursepreneurs grew out of that. It just evolved and continues to evolve as my skill set gets larger and larger and larger. I can do more and more things, and more opportunities come out. So that's really where it stemmed from. I saw that other nurses were struggling with the same issues that I had of being stuck in the hospital system and looking for ways out.
Yeah, I was scrolling through Facebook today, and there was a group on one of the nursing groups, and it asked, what did you get for Nurses Week? What was your Nurse Week gift this week? And I'm not kidding you, probably like 85%. It felt like 85%. I didn't do any statistics, but of the folks on there responded, I got furloughed, or I got to keep my job, or I got told I was going to have a decrease in my pay. Like just tons and tons and tons of things like that. And it made me go back and think about something that I was once told, which is the only true security that you have in terms of, people think that they have security in their pensions, or they have security in really great organizations, or they have security in whatever. But the only true security you have is when you build it yourself for yourself. So you're, taking your mission and living your mission versus filling the mission of somebody else's dream. And so it really kind of made me go back and think, if had all these nurses that we're talking about, the impact that the pandemic is having on their lives, had even a side business, or something that they were doing on the side, they may not have felt the impact as bad economically, and or they could have had businesses that could have created solutions for some of the things that we're seeing now. And so I think it's probably a really good idea for people to start thinking about, even if you really love your job and you never want to leave, or you really love your organization, what can you do to create kind of a side gig that, number one, helps others, and number two, gives you a cushion so that you always have something to fall back on in those, what if moments.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to mention too, because I remember not really getting anything for never getting anything for Nurses Week because nurse practitioners, when I was a nurse practitioner, weren't included in Nurses Week, so we got nothing.
Oh,
But again, working for 20 neurosurgeons for 15 years, the best gift I ever got, and this is all 20 of them pitching in, was a bottle of wine for
oh,
all 20 neurosurgeons. So they literally get $100,000 bonuses at the end of the year, and we got a nice bottle of wine, which I was just kind of like, yeah, this is nice and all, but
yeah. Was it a $10,000 bottle of wine, Catie?
yeah, that okay, but that I
No,
may never have drunk that, so then maybe it's not a good gift. Just hold it. And
look at it.
But, it also just begs the question of what is it that I want them to do, or what would be enough that I would feel appreciated and validated? And those are the kind of the deep questions that I had to really ask myself. Like, at this point, do I really care if somebody gives me something for Nurses Week? And the answer is no, because I give myself what it is that I want. And I think that's the piece that's kind of missing because we're not routinely appreciated or validated in the hospital system, but it can't come from without. It's got to come from within. And that's the only way that you're really going to be happy with what you get or don't get for that matter.
Yeah, for sure. You got me thinking, if there are some nurse leaders that are listening to this right now, they're driving to work or they've been laid off or whatever the scenario is, what are some things that they might do, or what are some steps that they might take to start to explore entrepreneurship as a nurse?
Well, it's definitely something that is, and you mentioned something about years in the making, and I would say that a really solid entrepreneurial gig or side hustle, or if you want it to be your full-time job, is going to be years in the making. And I can't tell you how many nurses I've had to call me and say, what can I do super fast and easy to get this business going? And it doesn't work that way. So for entrepreneurialism, one of the things that you really need to have a passion for is to solve a problem. So you really have to want to help somebody else and just come up with solutions. So you're the type of person that loves listening to problems and brainstorming ideas, and maybe everybody comes to you with their problems and you give them solutions. I mean, that's kind of a key factor that this would probably be a good area for you to be. In terms of building wealth, yeah, it's a great investment for you to build wealth for yourself. But there's other ways to do wealth building without starting a company. And if you don't have a passion for helping other people and solving their problems, it's probably not a great investment for you to spend your time and money in growing a business. So I think making that distinction, do I just want passive wealth building, or do I really want to get in there and solve problems? And I'm going to invest in a business that can grow and become wealth building.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, everybody that I've talked to that owns a business that's successful, and every book that you read on entrepreneurship, it really is about having that genuine desire to really be a change maker and really help improve the lives of other people in whatever way that might be. And if you look at those that go into it really with, the eye on a 7-figure or whatever it is that they might have their eye on, but it's related to self-benefit versus others' benefits, you see how their organizations may not be as successful as those that really aim to make a change in the world. So I would totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see those same people that will jump from idea to idea to idea just because they think, oh yeah, IV hydration, that's easy, I can do that, or I can do concierge nursing, that's be super simple, and none of them are easy, but all of them are fun if you love doing, solving that particular problem.
Yeah. So you spoke about concierge nursing and IV hydration. What are some of the other businesses that maybe you've ran into nurses that are doing, or what are things that, thinking outside of what the typical, role of a nurse is, what are some kind of neat things that you've seen nurses do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have actually two kind of tiered type of, I don't know what you would call them, but programs, if you will. And the one is a big mastermind, a nursepreneur mastermind, where the ideas are much more ambiguous to start. So the nurses come in, they're like, I really want to start something. I have a passion for this, this, and this, but I don't know how to start it. So, for example, one of my students came in and she loves mother baby and that postpartum period. So, I said, well, we can start a business in that. And she said, well, I don't understand how we can do that. So I've been showing her how to structure an offer that she can present to women in postpartum period and, offer them coaching programs and various different things that she can do in that aspect. And then I had these, what I call focus masterminds, which are such as legal nurse consulting mastermind. So how to set up a business and get marketing referrals and that kind of stuff. Cannabis mastermind, IV hydration. Then there's medical staffing, med spas, content writing. There's a whole just slew of very focused businesses that we can help them set up. And at some level, I think people think that those are easier because they can wrap their mind around what the business model is, but it's just as hard to start an IV hydration clinic as it is to start a business based on your expertise in postpartum women. So it depends on what you want to do and what your expertise is, and we can roll it into a business model and show you exactly how it can generate income.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say it's just as hard to do something that you're passionate about as it is to do things that maybe they're a little bit more clear about. And I think it's an important piece for people to remember in terms of like taking the easy way out, because there is no easy in any kind of business. There's no easy in healthcare. What are some things that you see as the biggest challenges for people that are like, okay, I'm ready to take a leap. Like I want to, this is something that sounds really interesting. What do you see as some of the challenges that people frequently face?
So the biggest challenges are the sheer overwhelm, which we try and minimize. So, I don't like to give everybody the entire picture to start with because they're like, oh my God. And then the competition. So we do competition worksheets for all of our students so that they can see who's out there. And when they start looking to see who's out there, they're like, oh my God, I can't compete with that person or blah, blah, blah. But it's not about competing with other people. And that's where it really helps to be in a group, because what we do is help them to see the competition as inspiration and say, all right, there's somebody out there that's generating money on this business. This business model works. This person cannot serve 6 billion people on the planet. So there's, other opportunity for competition to come into a space. So, and the idea there is to kind of take an angle on it. So, for instance, with IV hydration, you could just start a brick and mortar business just like the IV hydration clinic down the street from you. Or you could do like a separate angle and say, you know what, I'm going to go after sports teams or athletic performance, or, maybe I'm going to do weddings and just pick a niche and just do something somewhat different than what the competition is already doing. So I think when you think like that and you see these openings, it just makes things a lot easier. But you want to use your competition as inspiration and not to like a reason not to start a business,
Yeah, I read a book. It's called Choose by Ryan Levesque. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so in his book, he tells people that if you are trying to go into a business and there's no competition, that's a huge red flag.
Yes.
And it's highly likely it's something you don't want to go into because there might not be a market for it. And so he talks about like the top things that you want to have when you are looking to go into any kind of business that's sustainable. And so one of the things is making sure that there's competition. Another is making sure that it's something that has there's a sequential appetite for it. So the example he gives is like a bug service. Those kind of, like if you decided to start a termination, like a bug killing service, once you kill the bugs and the problem's gone, then like how likely are you to be able to continue to do business with the people that you've already had as clients? So, I mean, maybe that would work for somebody who owns a ton of apartment buildings, but as like an individual homeowner, that might not be something that he can keep me as a sustainable customer for. So something that you want to do is try and solve for something that's a problem that's recurring. So maybe in the IV hydration business and sports medicine, every time they play a game, you're going to see some changes in electrolytes or something like that. I'm making it up. And then he goes into
making sure that he calls them players with money, or something to that effect. And he said he tried to go into a discount scrapbooking company, and he said, he thought it was cool, like he'd be able to sell these books on how to do scrapbooking at a discount. And he said when he looked into the market, he found that no, these people didn't have any money. They were scrapbooking. They didn't, so he couldn't sell anything. And so it's really interesting because, everything that you're sharing around having to have, competition, using the competition for inspiration, but not copying, right? Like we don't want to provide the exact same service. It's kind of, in my mind, like the difference between Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme, right? Like they're just because Krispy Kreme is in the market, Dunkin' Donuts didn't say I can't, or vice versa, because I have no clue which organization started first. But right, so putting your own spin on it, I think those are all super valid points. And yeah, I mean, it's a great book. So I would totally say to anybody who's looking at a startup, that'd be a great a great tool to have in your toolbox.
Yeah, and along those lines as well, like with your competition, I mean, you really want to make sure that they have money, but make sure that you can define them as well. So I've had nurses come in and say they want to do coaching, and I'm like, well, coaching for who? Like,
Yeah.
we need to define this, and then make sure that they identify with the term that you're giving them. So if you say chronic patients or chronic disease patients, like nobody walks around and says I'm a chronic disease patient, so they're not going to join Facebook groups that say I'm a chronic disease patient. So, but they will join groups for PCOS, and that's one of my other students, Rosalind. She does PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And these women who have PCOS identify with the term PCOS, and they'll say, I have PCOS, and they join PCOS groups, and they want to be, and all this stuff. So now we have a very select audience that we can target and engage, as opposed to going through a million Facebook groups asking if anybody has PCOS.
Yeah, for sure. That's absolutely true. And I think the more you niche down, the more you relate to the individual on that level, right? So you're speaking to somebody versus trying to speak to everybody, which means you're going to be speaking to nobody.
Right. And that's a really hard thing to do, and especially for nursing. And this is something that I've just realized recently in the last, I guess, year, 6 months or whatever. But as nurses, we tend to be very broad. And we like this ability to be able to cross train, and I can work OB, and then I can go work the ED, and then I can go work the OR, and all these great things and stuff. So when nurses come to me and want to talk about, what can I do? And I'll say, what's your expertise? And they give me this litany of stuff that they've done before. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, maybe we can find a common running theme here, but the real money, it comes in an expertise or a specialty. So I would really encourage nurses to, instead of going broad and being able to do everything, is to find something, even if you don't go into a business, something narrow. So one of my my nursing friends now is in cardiology, CVICU. And I said, well, why don't you learn everything you can about ECMO? And, she's not even doing a business, but I'm like, we'll make you the ECMO expert. And everybody wants you to come to their conference, and you write all the stuff about it. You write the chapters, you do all the articles, like just brand yourself around ECMO. Don't do ECMO and then OB and then whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great, that's, I'm glad that you kind of mentioned that, because I think this information, there's probably listeners on there that are like, no, I'm not interested in starting a business or entrepreneurship or whatever, but you may not be interested in that, but you may be interested in speaking at conferences or giving talks or being seen as a content expert or subject matter expert. And so these are, you're hitting the nail on the head around different strategies and the why behind, how this information is beyond useful to entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, you really want to brand your career, and that I'm totally going off topic with entrepreneurialism, but I think it's really important, and I think it's something that as nurses as a whole, we kind of miss the mark on that, because having that expertise is so powerful, and it's really defining. And a lot of people are afraid to niche down because they're like, oh, but there's all these other people over here that I could get, and it's like, well, you'll actually get more the fewer people that we have to work with. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Tell me about, you and I met at a meetup that you hosted. Tell me how you got those started. Are you going to have more? What's your hope for those meetings?
Yeah, well, COVID has ruined a lot of those meetings for me. I'm very upset. Yeah, because we were going to be in Dallas and then Charlotte, and I was supposed to go to Kenya, and I was having a meetup over there. So, um, yeah, so I had decided to put these together because those face-to-face meetings are so powerful. And what we do in the morning is I work with my students that are local in that area, and then in the afternoon we bring in local business owners who are in that area just to kind of connect everybody and talk about ideas and share things and just because to me your network is everything. In business and I think in life in general, it's all about who you know or who you're willing to get to know. And the more people you know and the more opportunities that you have to listen to other people's ideas, the richer you will be just personally, professionally, and financially, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. Have you thought about doing any virtual meetup?
Well, we do. So I haven't thought about doing yes and no. So I do virtual meetups with all of my students, but I haven't really thought about doing them like that. I guess, yeah. I mean, I haven't put too much thought in it, to be honest. And to be honest, with the COVID, we've been so busy, that I really haven't had time to do any of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I get it. I totally get it. Are you still working as a registered nurse right now?
I go into the OR every once in a while, so I take call like once a month. And luck will have it, I ended up in the OR last weekend with a COVID patient, so that was fun.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay, so you told me what the some of the biggest challenges you've seen in entrepreneurs are. What do you think are some of the best rewards of going into and owning your own business?
Well, I'll tell you that the best thing for me, and this might not be on anybody's radar or whatever, but it's really been about self discovery and personal development. And I say that because you hit so many roadblocks, and I guess this is another barrier, but you hit so many roadblocks in starting your business. And most of the problems that you end up coming up against are not business problems. The business itself is pretty straightforward. Just tell people about what you're doing, get in front of them, let them solve the problem that they want solved. That's pretty straightforward. But then it's like, well, I can't do that because I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not expert enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. So I had all these like personal issues that I had to work through. And so I ended up spending more money on personal development than I did on like business development because every time I got stuck, it was always a personal problem that I was dealing with, whether it was, when I was 9, my parents told me I couldn't do this or I wasn't good at that, or, and I'm like still working through it like 40 years later. But and that it filters over into your business, and every time you come up against one of those limiting scripts of I can't do that because 99% of the time I can guarantee you it's going to be a personal problem and it has nothing to do with business.
That's true. What has been your biggest aha?
Oh my God. There's been a lot of ahas. Yeah, so when I first started one of my businesses, I refused to put any pictures on my website because, I said, well, nurses don't do that. They don't sell. They don't do this. They don't, just all these things that I had conjured up in my mind that we don't do. And it was really just me being afraid to step out and be a leader. And to that end, like it took me a year to put my first webinar together and actually launch it. And I made several sales. And then when the sales money came in, the first thing I wanted to do was refund everybody and apologize. And I was like, what is wrong with you? And it was just one of those things like that you're a terrible business person who like makes sales and then refunds the money. But yeah, and that's clearly a personal problem, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that just would apply to so many people because we, number one, we're nurses, right? So we're always kind of trying to help. And, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that myself and other nurse entrepreneurs that I know, or even non-entrepreneurs that I know have is that, we struggle with, we know these people need help. We're helping them with this program and like, how can we charge them? And then I think the flip side of that is that if we want to be sustainable and continue to help people, we have to be able to have a place to live and food to eat. And so it's kind of a balance of, remembering, yes, we are nurses and we are supposed to help. And, it feels kind of awkward to charge for that help. And knowing that if you don't, it's not going to be sustainable. You're going to have to go do something to make money. And then what time are you going to have to be able to help other people?
Right. But you also have to feel worth the money. And I think that's a big self-confidence thing that you go through, because I can give you business advice all day long for free, but if you actually pay me for it, now I have a whole new set of responsibilities, and now I almost feel like a fraud, because um, now you're saying that my advice is worth something, and that's it's a hard thing to come to grips with, and just say, yes, actually, it is worth, let's say it's worth $10,000 for me to talk to you for, a month or something or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point, and it's one that I can see not being aware of until you're like right there in the moment and it's happening, and then you're like, well, what did I do now?
Right. And I've had one student who pretty much self-sabotaged herself for the past year, and just with there's always a reason why she can't sell, and then she'd say, well, Catie, I haven't made any money, and I'm like, okay, well, how many sales calls did you make, or how many people did you reach out to? And she's like, well, none. I'm like, well, it's really hard.
You want it to just fall on your lap.
Yeah,
Got you.
exactly. I'm like, well, that makes it difficult. But she also works with oncology patients, and she's like, I don't want to charge the oncology patients. And I said, well, that's fine, but then they're not our audience, so we can't offer them something and then charge nothing. So they can be the recipient of what you do, but they're not the audience. So now we need to talk about who is the audience, who's actually going to pay for this. So if we're not going to ask oncology patients to pay for it, then we have to ask somebody to pay for it, and that's our new audience, and we have to figure out what their problem is.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point. What are you hoping to do with nursepreneurs? I know you have a podcast, you have the masterminds. What's your dream goal for that organization?
And I see Nursepreneurs as a global brand that just connects nurses around the world. And, we have this like exclusive, or, well, inclusive, but exclusive to nurses, right? Group where we just share ideas and we just elevate this part of the profession to, really put our mark on it. And one of the things that I love that we're doing is we're working in the concierge nurse space, and we are just literally pioneering that space. We have about 7, 8 concierge nurse businesses in our group, and we're really moving that forward. We're literally writing the textbook on it. So I'm
Oh,
really
awesome.
yeah, excited about that whole prospect, and just literally creating a whole new field of nursing.
With concierge nursing, what kind of I like two? I mean, I guess like IV hydration maybe is one, or like home visits is another. What kind of concierge nurse visits that have you seen, or what else is out there? Because I need to expand my mind.
So some of the nurse concierge businesses work with plastic surgery patients. So it's a simple, well, not a simple procedure, but it's a procedure that same day the patients need to be picked up, and most of them want somebody to be there with them. A lot of them don't want anybody to know they're having plastic surgery. So, it works out perfectly to have like a discreet private nurse come in and take care of you. And then there's a whole other avenues that we've been talking about, like, just I have a couple students that are in the LA area that cater to that really, really wealthy population, where they want the private nurse, the concierge nurse, to come in and do their IV antibiotics or change their dressing, or, that kind of stuff. Um, and then another student is working in the pediatric realm and just helping moms or parents after pediatric surgery. So there's a whole bunch, and then there's a whole piece of advocacy where you can go to appointments with people and that kind of stuff. So it's really exciting, and we're building out a whole like spectrum of ideas of how to expand concierge nursing.
I love that. I really love that. I think I've seen some other ones like some podiatry nurses that specialize in doing, foot care at home. I'm trying to think of all the other different types of services that you could offer. I think I've actually seen some nurse practitioner led businesses around aesthetics and that type of concierge servicing.
Yeah, and then there's a whole other just that direct primary care model that some nurse practitioners have bought into as well, and I thought that was a really neat model. years ago, I wanted to start a direct primary care, which is basically at a membership fee, and there's no insurance involved. And I thought that would be a really great business to do. And then I realized I didn't really want to work primary care, and I'm like, this is a problem.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be a problem.
Yeah. So it was a great idea, and it was in my head, and I went out and bought like a whole bunch of supplies, and now my basement is full of supplies that I can't use, but it came in handy for COVID because I had masks and stuff. So
Yeah, that's what you bring up a really good point around, like, you might have like the best idea ever, but if it doesn't fit what you really want to do, you'll end up doing something that, yes, makes money, and then you'll be miserable down the line. So
oh
really
yeah.
important to align like what you want to do with what you are gonna do.
Oh yeah, I always talk to my students about their just kind of personality, and I'm like, do you like being on stage? Do you want to interact with people? Do you want to not interact with people ever? Or it because it depends. Because concierge nursing and IV hydration, they're very highly, highly dependent on the partnerships that you make. So you have to be okay with going out and introducing yourself to other providers or other businesses that might work synergistically with you that will refer people to you because it's hard to do ads for concierge nursing, so you really need those referrals to come from MDs. And if you don't have relationships with these docs or providers and you're not willing to go out and make them, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you tell the nurse that's listening right now that's like, you have lit something up in me? Either I want to grow my brand and be known as, the nurse that does fill in the blank, or, I'm ready to look into and begin, my next phase or my next chapter. What would you tell them if they're like, but I can't because of whatever reason? What would you say to them?
Yeah, there's always buts. Yeah, I mean, really have to want it at the end of the day. And there'll always be a million reasons why you can't do something. But if there's one just internal flame that's itching you, that you're going to pursue it regardless of whether you're in six figures debt or you're, just whatever the issue is, coming to fulfill that is really powerful and it will move you. So, but there's so many things that you could do just for free. And the free stuff that you have to do to build a brand anyway, it's just time consuming and you have to be committed to doing it because I've seen a lot of people that'll open up an Instagram account and then they'll post once and say, well, I don't have any followers. And you're like, okay. Right. But it's something that you have to show up every day and be consistent with it. And there's tons of resources on how to build an Instagram account online and you can figure it out and just do it. But that comes back to that self-confidence. Like, is what I'm saying, is what I'm doing worth anything? Will anybody listen to me? And they will if you are persistent and consistent. And you can do a lot of that stuff for free. You can start YouTube if you want to do video, Instagram for photos. You could start a TikTok account and get a whole bunch of millennial followers. And my niece, who's 9, to follow you. And but it's just a matter of picking your platform. What do you like? What platform do you like? And showing up consistently around one message. And that's actually the best way to do it. And then your audience will eventually tell you what it is that they want from you. And that's when you can start the business.
Oh, that's awesome. What if you're like a person that like just likes all the platforms? Like, I like to do video and I love dancing on TikTok and I think pictures are like so really cool. What would you say?
I would say you pick one primary platform that you're going to focus solely for your business because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and you can spend. I mean, maybe if you have a lot of time, you could do it. But I mean, just spending 45 minutes a day on Instagram is, it takes a lot out of you because if you're going to interact with people and DM them and like and comment and share their stuff, that takes a while and you're only building a couple people a day. Like, you don't want to have a bot going around liking everybody's stuff because it's, to get followers because they don't mean anything. But if you actually put the personal touch in there, it'll pay back. And one of the biggest platforms that I've spent the most time and energy in has been LinkedIn, and that's been one of the most profitable platforms that I've been in. And everything else is just kind of secondary.
Any LinkedIn tips?
Yeah, have a photo on your LinkedIn profile, like, and have your message on the LinkedIn profile. Like, just when somebody comes and they see you, they should know within 3 seconds. It should be like what we call the stupid test. Like, if I look at your profile for 3 seconds and then look away, will I remember what it is that you do? And if not, then it's not effective.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I'm going to tell that to my daughter, who doesn't have a LinkedIn, but she should have one.
Yes, because it's not about like getting a job. It's about connecting with other people who, and that's a very wealthy platform in the terms of people that are on LinkedIn have money, and they're doing business and they're looking to do business and they're willing to spend money. So it's a good one.
Oh, that's a great tip. Thank you for sharing with the listeners. Listen, Catie, this has been awesome. You've just given so many different little pearls that I think are beyond invaluable. And I know Nursepreneurs just has fabulous content and really can help people get where they want to go. If people want to find out more about you or Nursepreneurs, where can they find you?
They can find me at katieharris.com, and I have a nursepreneur guide in there that lists like over 100 plus nurse businesses that are already out there, and you can check them out and look them up and see what other people are doing and look at that competition and let it spark your imagination. And I think that's a really good place to start.
Awesome. I've had a great time and so glad that we met. So glad that, we'll have each other in each other's lives until, way past COVID, I'm hoping.
I hope COVID ends. Not that I don't want a relationship to end, but
I know. Awesome. This has been great. Thanks, Catie.
Thank you.